Good evening, guys. This is Hasper TV, and this is Harry. Just a short video for today. I've been reading all the Sun stuff on and off for the past couple of weeks, about people's thoughts on Sun, and about how whether he should start against Arsenal, about his past performances, and I just want to give my two piece on what's been going on. I mean, for me, Son this season hasn't been as good as normal. I mean, yeah, he scored his hat trick on the week, which is kind of be a given that he's going to play against Arsenal now. But the point in this video is to tell people that look, no player is undroppable, and that includes Son, Kane, Perisic, Sessegnon, whichever player you want to throw at me, Bentancur even. But for me, Son is a big example of a player that even though he, for example, stayed with us under Nuno, and maybe people value him more than Kane because of that, or then the other side, some people value Kane more because obviously he came through the ranks and stuff like that. And there were calls to drop Kane last season, even as well, which I kind of agree with. I think with Son, the arguments got so heated in the Spurs community and on the Spurs YouTube community especially, and I think people forgot to look at it in like a different way, right? So even if it was, for example, shoes on the other foot, right? Because Richardson and Son were basically fighting for the same spot. Say we had Richardson this past few years, right? And Son came in this season, yeah? But then Son came in to the side and was doing better than Richardson. Wouldn't we have wanted Richardson to be dropped for Son, right? Okay, now we look Son this season, first 2, 3 games, he wasn't really doing anything. I think he only got like one assist or something. And you could tell he was tired or he just wasn't in form because, players go dips in and out of form. Now, the difference this year to last year for me is that Son's backup or competition, however you want to phrase it, guys, was Bergwijn or Lucas. Now, Lucas is currently injured as well, so we couldn't exactly throw him in. And Richardson was signed for this very reason, to give competition to the front three, Kulusevski, Kane, and Son. Right now, this season so far, until obviously came on the last half hour, the last game, Son has been the worst of the three, in my opinion. And Richardson has deserved this spot and deserves to start the last game over Son, right? Kulusevski, for me, I felt hard done by with being dropped for Son as well the past few games because I think he's our most creative player. And for me, out of the front four, we can call it the front four now, he's probably been our best. As in, if we just look at just performance-wise, I'm not talking about numbers exactly. I know he got a few assists and he got a couple goals, but we're talking just pure, like, just his all-round play. I think Kulusevski's probably been the best. I think Kane, he's got the goals, but again, he hasn't looked 100% to me. And I do think he probably needs just to be a bit more sharper. And I don't know, he doesn't seem like he's up to speed yet. But now we're focusing on Son especially, right? So he has played a lot of South Korea. If you look at his record at Tottenham, he's got at least 18 goals in all competitions every season he's been here. Of course, the season hasn't finished. But people look, and in the first season, he only got 8 goals, right? And he had to fight his way into the side the following season after. Now, by the same concept, I think people kind of dismissing Richardson at the same time, whilst trying to keep Son in the side, or in general, just during this time period, I felt like people were sort of dismissing Richardson with Son, and that's what kind of caused the division for me. And I think we need to look at it in a different way, in the sense that the fact we're having these debates about between Richardson and Son, or Kulusevski and Son, or whether Kane should even make way for Richardson one game, because Kane, some people think he's not playing well, and I kind of agree with that, but he's got 6 goals in 7 games, so you're not going to drop him. And then, so, numbers wise, he even looks better. But the fact we're having this debate is a good thing, because it means we actually have some competition in the front three. But I think as a consequence, I need to kind of talk about Richardson as well, because I feel like because people are trying to say support Son, they'll put down Richardson. Now, Richardson has played at much lesser clubs than Tottenham Hotspur in his career, right? He's played at Everton, Watford, and I can't remember who before that. And his goal average was like 10 to 12 Premier League goals, maybe, if that, right? But you need to look at the fact that, for example, someone like Son, who came from Leverkusen, netted, I think, like 12, 15 goals or something, I think it's Leverkusen times. And now he's playing someone like with Kane. And Kane's been playing with Son, and obviously they have this connection. And he's been playing with better players at Tottenham compared to his time at Leverkusen. So naturally, his goals have gone up. Now, with Richardson, I think people dismissing him completely for Son was kind of uncalled for, really, because Richardson came in the side. He was hungry. He wanted to play. I mean, he was making an impact. He got an assist, I remember, against Forest. He scored his 2 goals against Marseille when he eventually got a couple run of games. And I know he got taken off for Son in the last game. We'll talk about it in a minute. But the fact is, Richardson playing with better players could already, to me, he already looks a better player, right? So to equate Son's ability to Richardson's now so early, I think is wrong. And I think people were wrong to say dismiss Richardson for Son, and it became like a 1 versus 1 debate in terms of, oh, do you play Richardson? Do you play Son? I mean, you could even argue you play all 4 of them just to solve this issue, right? You could play Richarlison on the left, or on the right, sorry, Son on the left, Kane in the middle, and Kulusevski at right wing back. So I mean, we have a problem there, right? Don't we? So, but Son in itself, it brings a bigger issue to me, that the fact we can't think of players as undroppable, right? Even Kane. Son was going through a bad period, and I think for me, Conte probably gave him more chances than he should have really given him, given obviously the quality Son has and given the way he was playing, because you could tell he was overthinking things, he was latching at things. Son even admitted himself after his hat-trick that he was disappointed in his own performances, and he knew he wasn't playing well. So the people that were saying, oh, well, we're still playing well based on this XG or whatever stats you want to throw at me, I don't really care. Like, obviously they were wrong, because Son himself even said, look, I wasn't playing well. And naturally, now we have players like Richarlison, who is obviously a massive upgrade on Bergwijn, right? And he was like a #1 man at Everton, yeah? We have the option now to play someone instead of Richardson, or instead of Kulusevski, or instead of Kane, to come in, and now it's like proper competition. And I'm so happy Son scores a hat-trick, and he has to score. He has to score against Arsenal. Has to start against Arsenal. But I think the wider issue is that people will call there's a divide caused because of the whole Richardson Son thing. And for me, I think people need to think about it in the sense of, like, if a player's not on form, regardless of how you feel about him, regardless of, probably Kane's probably my favourite one, right? Out of the 4, yeah? If Kane went, say, 6 games without a goal, if Richardson was coming on and making an impact, I would even argue that you could probably start Richardson over Kane in that scenario, because it would depend on how the other 2 are doing as well. Because Kulusevski's less on the goal side, more on the creative side, and Son's more on the goal side than the creative side, right? But you could argue that Richardson coming for Kane if Kane's off form, right? That's the whole point of signing Richardson. I think people also forget what happened last year, right? So I think it was against Crystal Palace, correct me if I'm wrong. Kulusevski was dropped after like a couple bad games, maybe it was like 1 or 2 bad games. He looked very off it, I remember. And Lucas got his chance to stake his claim in the team. Now, Lucas, that game, even though I love Lucas, and I know he's probably like a squad player now, and he never was really a starter for us until some like bits and parts of the odd seasons, right? But he came in and he didn't perform. And then Kulusevski came on with that extra energy, that extra like impetus that, I need to do something, I need to make an impact, otherwise I'm not going to stay in the team, because Lucas got in ahead of me, right? Now, obviously, Richardson's a better player than Lucas, right? But it's the same sort of thinking, yeah? Which is why people like me wanted Son to be dropped, because of this response that he gave us, right? This was the whole purpose of him being on the bench, to get this sort of response. So like I say, this counts for Son, it counts for Richardson, it counts for Kulusevski, it counts for Bentancur, it counts for Højbjerg, it counts for Dyer. I know people don't like speaking on Dyer, but it counts for Davies, which is probably why Longley's come in now, because Davies didn't play well in 1 game, and you just put in Longley. And I know people are going to say Longley's a better player, but you can even argue that even happened for Romero in some ways, because Romero didn't play well against Marseille, and Sanchez played, and then we were like, oh no, Sanchez is another calamity, let's bring on Romero. But the same thing is, like, look, the whole point of having a squad like this and having attacking options that we have is if one of the front 3, because we do play a 3-4-3 formation, or one of the front 2, if we switch 3-5-2, are not playing well, you have a player that can come in, take the guy's spot, and now he thinks, look, I can't drop my energy levels, I can't drop, I have to be clinical, otherwise I'm not going to be in the team, yeah? So by the same token, this is what basically happened with Son. He didn't play well for 4 or 5 games, and for me, you give a player, if he's so out of form, you give him maybe like 3 to 4 games to get back into form. And then if he doesn't perform in those 4 to 5 game period, right? And you have the option of someone like Richardson, you put him in. Especially because Richardson, when he was coming on, was making an impact, yeah? And the only reason I'm saying stuff like this is because we could have the same argument in like a month's time. say Richardsons was starting or Kulusevski starting, he's not playing well, people can be like, oh, because Kulu's like the the Swedish the Swedish Decky song, yeah, and be like, oh no, he's one of my favourite players, well, don't drop him. But if he's not playing well, you can put Richardson. That's the whole point, and that's why Son was dropped in the end, because I don't think Conte was given any other choice. And for people who were saying he was rested, I completely disagree with that, because no manager is going to come out and say he's going to drop a player like blatantly like that. Like, he will make up some other excuse because he doesn't want to hurt the player's confidence or hurt the relationship with the player by coming out and saying, "Look, I'm dropping Son for Richardson because Richardson's playing better and Son's not scoring any goals." He's not going to come out in a presser and literally say that, yeah? He's not going to literally say that, because it will destroy the relationship between Son and Conte, yeah? And Conte don't want that. We don't want that. So they have to be very cute about the way they say it. And he did obviously imply, like with the Emerson change, that, look, some players are tired, blah, blah, blah. So he made those changes. But the only scenario I can see a manager coming out and literally saying, I'm dropping a player, or he's never going to play for us again, is if in a situation like Ndombele happened, or Lo Celso happened, or back in the day there was that issue with Hossam Ghali. And I don't know if anyone said it in the presser, but it wouldn't surprise me if a manager came out, if Joel came out and said something like, "Oh, Ghali won't ever play for us again because of the way he reacted to being taken off." Those like extreme scenarios when a manager would literally say, "Look, he's never going to play for us again," or a good example to think of right now for me would be like Gerrard when he told Tyrone Mings, and we know publicly that captaincy was taken away with him, and that was mainly because of maybe an issue with the manager, maybe his performances, maybe both. I mean, I'm not a Villa fan, so I can't really talk that much about that, but those are the only scenarios when a manager will publicly come out and say slate a player or slate a player's performances, is when something maybe has happened between them off the field, maybe. Like, I think you guys, a good example, I think, with Conte himself, right, is when he dropped Costa, and Costa was going to be sold by Chelsea because of it, right? And I remember in a presser, I think he said he'd text Costa or something along those lines. But that's like an extreme scenario, right? Conte isn't going to come out and say, "Oh, Kulusevski's not playing well. Oh, so-and-so didn't play well." In fact, with Kulusevski, when Kulusevski was dropped these past 2 games, he even came out and said that the guy was probably hard done by to not be playing. So Conte, or any other manager I've ever seen in world football, is ever going to really come out unless he really hates the player, and the player is not trying at all to come out and say, "Look, I'm dropping this player." He just has to frame it in a different way, right? With Emerson, he said, "Oh, Emerson might be tired," so he doesn't play Emerson, yeah? And with Son, he could have put it to him that way and say, "Look, you play so much football." He might have even, might behind closed doors, he might have even told him, "Look, things aren't going for you at the moment." And then he might have said, "Look, you're sitting on the bench, and come on and and prove us a point that you should be starting ahead of like Richardson or Kulusevski, or because I think Kane scored that, or whoever, right?" And that's exactly what he did. And yes, Son was dropped. The whole point of this video is to imply that, look, no player is undroppable. Son, we need to learn from this as fans, and I know myself, but I don't know other people. We need to learn from this and say, look, if a player's not playing well, and we have the option to bring on a player or to start a player who's close to, it might not be equal to, because obviously Son is probably an elite footballer. Richardson's not there yet. He might be in a year or two, but we have the option. Use the option, and it's not like personal. Like, oh look, I hate Son because I don't want him to play, blah blah. Like, I love Son, but he, for the past few games, he didn't deserve to play. But then he's come on, and because of the whole benching, maybe he's woke up and said, look, if I don't play well, I'm going to get dropped. I'm not going to play. So therefore, we got the response that we needed. Look, it finally hit him maybe mentally in his head. He was like, I've got to take my chances. And literally, that's exactly what he did. He took his first with his first or second chance, and he just did that little shimmy and scored that goal. And then the rest of them flooded through, because that's exactly how it works with strikers, I think, for me, or attackers. You might miss so chances, but then when you finally get that goal, the floodgates open and your confidence just comes flying back, and everything you touch suddenly just goes your way, yeah? Like, you can see even with his last goal, the hat-trick goal, I don't think he hit it that well, but because he scored the past 2, he had the confidence and like the willpower to kind of see it through. Okay, so now we're done with the Son talk, but some quick stuff on Lloris just before I end this video. There's rumours, or not rumours, I mean it's official pretty much, that Lloris probably going to be out of the North London derby, most likely. And are you guys confident with Forster? Because I'm not saying I'm not confident. I mean, he's better than Galini was, but again, it's an unknown quantity in the sense that this will be probably his first start for Tottenham in a North London derby, especially. Right, you're playing someone like Forster, who I think he did well at Southampton, and I was reading even that he's better with his kicking. Thank God. and yeah. So I mean, for me, Forster, he can come in and do a job, but I wouldn't be confident in him in a North London derby. It's his first game. I think that game that's quite scary, to be honest with you. But we'll see what happens. But just to close off the video, look, like no player's undroppable. Son deserved to be dropped because he was on bad form, and we should be thankful that we have a player like Richardson or Costa or whatever it was to come in and take that spot because they were hitting more form than Son. And regardless of, Son's done obviously like a lot of great things at Tottenham, so is Kane and Kulusevski in a short period of time, and so is Richardson at the moment. Regardless of how they play, if they don't play well, they shouldn't deserve to stay at the start of the next game if they don't play well for like 3 or 4 games, because we have the options now. That's the whole point of having a squad. And for the first time in a while, the attacking options we have are like brilliant. We've got 5 options. Use them. That's the whole point of having Richardson. Use him. If one of the front 3 aren't playing well, use him. You saw the impacts he made. But now, I'm so happy to just conclude this video, right? I'm so happy for Son. I'm so glad that he's back. We just need to remember, no player is bigger than club, and no player is undroppable. And take care, guys, and come on.